And we're live.
Good morning. I call the meeting to order at, I don't know, 9:09, I think.
9:09.
The first item 1.1, Zoom edict and live stream to YouTube. Cindy, do you have something to say?
I just wanted to review with the committee that we are live streamed to YouTube. This is our first virtual meeting. When we go through the agenda, we will call for votes. And when we call for a vote, if all of the members can raise their hand, the chair will confirm the vote and then we'll move on. As we scroll through the agenda, if there's anything you can't see, just raise your hand and the chair can address that. It is important as we go through the meeting that everybody is muted. And when you go to speak, you raise your hand or you make sure that you have the chair's permission so we're not over talking each other. It does create some feedback and a bit of background. So just make sure that we're not over talking each other. If there's any items that we would like to discuss that are not on the agenda, we will wait till the end of the meeting and we will add it to the June 17th meeting agenda. Does anybody have any questions?
No.
We can proceed, Chairman.
Okay, and I obviously called the meeting to order too soon before the Zoom edict. So strike that from the minutes. I'm now calling the meeting to order officially, and it's my pleasure to welcome Heather Clark to our committee. Heather, would you like to say anything about yourself? Feel free.
Yeah, good morning. Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be involved in this and see where I can help out. I have worked outside of the village for 20 plus years. I worked in Lindsay for a lawyer, just by way of background. I still do, just on a very part-time basis. And I'm in the village more now that my husband and I have taken over more of the family business. And so that brings me to, more self-employment and more flexibility with my time. So I can definitely be involved. My hope is to be more involved with the community and the village, and just learn new things. And always love to learn new things and be involved. So, okay. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Well, you're most welcome, and it's great to have you on the committee. So moving on to item 3 on the agenda, the approval of the agenda itself. We've all been sent copies of this in advance. So I ask someone to move it be a motion for it to be accepted. I think I saw David Franco's hand, and it's a bit difficult for me here because I have to scroll down, but let me see if there's another hand coming up. I see Ryan Huntley as one of them. So Ryan Huntley, David Franco have moved acceptance of the agenda. All in favor, and I'm going to have to go up again and count hands. So hands up, please. And I see all hands on deck. That's great. So the agenda is approved. Thank you. Moving on to item 4, disclosure of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof. Any declarations of conflict of interest? Hearing none, I'm moving on to item 5, which is closed session, and we are not having a closed session. Moving on to item 6. Item 6.1, the minutes of the meeting held November 19th, 2020. Again, those have been sent out in advance. And I would ask someone to move acceptance of those minutes.
I will move if you like.
And was that Bruce Lepper speaking?
Yeah.
Bruce Lepper has moved. I'm looking for another hand up. There, I see Tim Belch. Sorry if I miss anyone. Scrolling up and down here. All in favor, hands up, please. And I'll scroll up and down. And everyone seems to be in favor. Carried. Thank you. Okay. Moving on to the next agenda item. Business arising from the minutes, item 7. Madam Clerk, do we have any business arising from the last minutes? I think everything is covered in the new business, is it not?
Yes, through you, Chairman Ross, it is.
Okay, so we'll move on then. Reports. No reports. This is item 8. No reports are listed. Madam Clerk, yes?
This is an oversight. Generally, we would have a BIA update here, and I apologize. I just realized I did not have that on there. And unfortunately, Kathy was unable to attend today. I don't know if we just want to skip that item in its entirety, or if you would like to speak to something, Councillor Huntley. I apologize. Normally, that is a default item on here. I do see Mr. Ramsey has his hand up as well, but we'll just see what we want to talk about the BIA.
Okay, so first of all, Councillor Huntley, do you have anything to add or anything to in terms of BIA?
Sure. So from the BIA, I mean, we've had lots of meetings while the COVID's been on. Obviously, the BIA's hands are pretty tied at the moment as there's no events and there's not a lot of promotions going on. But the planters are the big thing. And I don't know if people noticed the Easter planters, but they're nice and bright. And we've moved them out closer to the road, which is kind of the new format that we're using with those planters. And I believe next week they're scheduled to be shifted over to the summer style. So we'll have a brand new look to those planters come next week. Other than that, not a whole lot of else to report, as not a whole lot can go on and happen.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Huntley. Mr. Ramsey, I think, had his hand up. You need to unmute, Mr. Ramsey. Is that correct, Mr. Ramsey? You wanted to say something? Oops. No, he needs to unmute. Does he know that?
Oh, okay. I'm
Good.
unmuted.
Good. Okay.
Unmuted. We had a couple of heritage plaques left over, which belonged to the old school. And I had a meeting with the Historical Society, Celia Hunter and Kim McLeod. And they were quite pleased that these plaques existed. And we discussed putting them on the building of the old school. And one we decided to put on the older portion of the school. That's what the plaque referred to. And the other plaque referred to the newer section of the school. We agreed where they would go beside the doors going in at eye level. The next day I went back and installed them. So they are now on the school. And that's the end of the heritage plaques. Thank you.
Thanks, Peter. That's great. Is that I'm delighted to hear that. Is that related to the BAA, or am I missing something?
No, that's Heritage Committee.
Oh, okay. So, but that's good information. Thank you very much. Okay, maybe if there's nothing more on the BIA, we should move on to general business. Everyone's agreed. So item 9.1, the work plan for 2021. A member of staff is going to review that with us, I hope.
Yes, through you, Chairman Ross, I will review this. So this is our approved budget for 2021. So what I thought is I would just itemize each of the budget items, kind of identify where the budget is that they come out of. I find sometimes we're kind of a little unsure where everything is. So we have been approved for $1,400 for the dial parquet and landscaping. We've been approved, oh, there's an extra and there, I'll remove that. We've been approved for $2,500 for the planter boxes. We've been approved for the Springville and Ebenezer Cemetery restoration. That's $740 annual or biannual restoration. So Campbell Monuments has provided us a quote, and they're gonna go back and just double check things in the spring and see if we need to do any maintenance this year. We may or may not, but they'll report back. So I might have something for the June meeting. They are also under a lot of COVID restrictions. So they're going to do their best to go have a look at that and see if we need to do work. We were successful and carried forward the contract position for the 13.5 for the heritage bylaw review and update. So I really hope that we can start moving forward with that. Again, we're kind of locked with COVID restrictions and, you know, the amount of space that we have. We're finishing the renovation. So hopefully, you know, we'll be able to give space for someone to come in and get this position moving, hopefully this year, and start on these bylaws. Heritage Awards, we've been, again, $500 annual, so that's very exciting. The downtown mural, we were granted $7,000 for that. The CIP, so we were granted, and part of the rollover for the 2020 was the $39,671. Then the $25,000 for the 2021 CIP incentives, and then $30,000 for the township-wide CIP. So we're just awaiting confirmation or wherever we are with the RED funding. So that's a high-level overview of where we are with our budget. So I think we can talk collaboratively as a committee on, you know, kind of what our next steps are. And unfortunately, COVID does not allow us to do a lot of things in a group, such as like planting or cleaning or joining together. You have to do things individually right now or in your own bubble. And so hopefully things lift after June 2nd. We'll hopefully, fingers crossed, we can, you know, start to get together again. But that's basically where it is. So I'll turn it over to you, Chairman Ross.
Thanks very much, Cindy. I guess we're not, at this point, we don't need to discuss any of these things because they'll be coming up in business. So this is just the overview. Am I correct in assuming that? Or is there discussion that we want to have about some of these items?
The only item I specifically identified was the mural on here, the Dial Monument and Work Plan. We can talk about that and we can encompass the landscape and planter boxes and all of that in there if we'd like to, unless there's a specific item on here. I know Miss Ellis wanted to speak about the Heritage Awards, so this would probably, but again, we have it as an individual item, so we can wait till there. So unless there's something specific on here, this is really just an update so people can see where we're at. Unfortunately, Bridget wasn't able to attend today, so I will leave the CIP updates to her and hopefully she'll be able to bring us one for our June meeting.
Great, okay. All right, so yes, Peter Ramsey.
Are you, excuse me, are you going to, at this point, add anything to this work plan? Or are you going to leave that to another discussion?
So the question, yeah.
Through you, Chairman Ross, to Peter. My honest answer is this is our approved budget. So this is the money that we can work within. So if we want to work within the confines of these numbers and change some of the items, there's no problem with that. But this is our money. So this is all we have. But we can do work for free. So if there's items you want to talk about, we can add those. But unfortunately, this is our budget. So we have to work within these numbers.
Yeah, okay. I think these things that I was thinking of don't really involve money as much as new projects and time and people. And as I say, I don't know whether you want to add it to this because there really isn't any money involved in it. They are just new projects to consider.
Well, Peter, I think if you want to add things here, this is probably the time to do it if it doesn't affect the money at all. And then we can get them on the list and see what's possible and what isn't in the short term and the medium term and the long term. So go ahead. And as far if the committee is all right with that. Is everybody okay with Peter talking about this now?
Yep.
Okay. So carry on if you want to add things that aren't going to cost you any money.
Okay. One of the things, and Karen and I have actually spoken about this at one time, we were discussing the number of brick manufacturers in the Millbrook and Cavan area. And there's quite a history of brick manufacturers in the area because a lot of the buildings here have been built by bricks manufactured locally. And there is a chap by the name of Rick Wilson who belongs to the Historical Society. And he is very knowledgeable on this subject. And Karen and I have talked about getting together with Rick. And so it's a project that everybody, I think, should show some interest and get involved in. And it's a piece of history that needs to be taken care of. Another thing that we should follow up on, and we discussed the number of tombstones that are located up at the Gardner Cemetery. And we were going to go in there as a group and record information off those stones. And we were going to try and relate them back to people from Millbrook or people who we think could have been buried at some time at the Dial Parkette and moved. Now, Bill Shields was going to give us a hand with that, and he sort of disappeared on me. But I was still going to go back and ask him if he would give us a little assistance, because he has access or knows of how to get access to files that would reveal a lot of information about names and burials. So that's a project that I think we should look after. Another one is the March Church. And Rob, you may be aware of this, that the March Church does not want to be designated historically. But because of the history behind the church, I think that we should gather as much information as we can about the church, when it was built and why and where it was put and how it has changed over the years. And it would be a good heritage project. Another thing we've also talked about is the Springfield Church and the fact that at some point it will be taken down. And we were thinking of ways to do something that we could save some part of it. And we should concentrate on that, because I think all of a sudden one day out of nowhere, we're going to find the church gone. What we should consider, and I have looked at, but I haven't done anything final, I would like to see probably some of the window frames saved and possibly moved across the street to the cemetery, and some type of a monument built. And we'll get into more detail on that, but I think that's something that should be kept in mind. And the last thing is, as everybody knows, behind the old school, facing onto the playground, there's a large entrance with two large wooden doors. And at one time, there were steps out there, and those steps were removed a couple of years ago. And it was decided, because of cost, that the steps would not be replaced. Now the doors have been left there, and inside the building, they have blocked it off. But there's problems, because there are still drafts coming through those doors to the interior of the building. Now, I had a talk with Jerry last summer, and he was kind enough to send somebody over, and they scraped the doors down and painted them. And then right now, they look very nice. They appear to be in good shape, but Jerry said they are not going to last. And at some point, we're going to have to decide what to do with them. Now, my concern is that as a committee, we should be discussing this and deciding the possibilities of what can happen. My concern is someday that somebody decides to remove those doors, take them to the dump in Peterborough and dump them, and come back and put up a brick flagstone wall or something as bad as that. Anyway, I think the committee should be well aware of what could happen, and a plan should be made what to do with the doors and the walls. That project may involve some money at some point, particularly if they decide to permanently close up the wall. Anyway, those are just some projects I would like everybody to keep in mind and think about how to handle some of these situations. Thank you.
Thanks, Peter. So that's all been duly noted by the clerk, I'm sure. And I can respond, I won't take a lot of time to do it, but I can respond to the Trinity the Marsh Chapel proposal. I wasn't aware that the church wardens and incumbent had turned down historical designation within the last 5 years since I've been the priest in charge, since I didn't hear anything about that. So it may be possible, because it hasn't been discussed in my tenure as priest in charge of the parish. But certainly the idea of gleaning historical information is a good one, and I can give you stuff right away, actually, or give this group information. So I think that's a very good idea. Okay, any other feedback to what Peter has said? And again, I have to sort of scroll up and down to see if people's hands are up.
Ryan Huntley had his hand up.
Ryan,
Yeah, I threw a hand
Councillor
up there.
Huntley, yes.
Thanks, Chair. And I don't know, Cindy, if you can keep me honest or not on this one, but did we not just receive some funds from the provincial government for some updates and repairs to the old school? And if that's the case, should we maybe as a committee, recommend that I believe Yvette or whoever's in charge of, whatever those changes or updates are going to do to the old school come back through this committee? Like maybe she presents to us what they intend to do, what the work plan is. Does that make sense? Cindy doesn't want to correct me, or maybe I'm just completely
Sorry,
wrong.
I was trying to get my unmute button. I'm not 100% sure where the funding allocation was, but I think it's a good inquiry, definitely, to go back to staff and say, if there's funding, if there's work, if there's anything going on at the old Millbrook School, that these are things that the committee would like to be consulted on and part of the process. I believe it's within our terms and rights, like it's a heritage building. Correct me if you think any different, Karen. I don't know about the funding or its entirety, so we can definitely look into that.
If I may, Chairman Ross?
Yes.
Yes, the Old Millbrook School is a designated heritage structure, so technically any work done at the school should roll through the committee, who makes a recommendation to council should there be any changes to the facade of the building. But I think Cindy's right. I think it is a good idea to check with staff at the township office to find out what the money has been received, what it's allocated for, because I know historically there have been significant infrastructure improvements in terms of heating and plumbing facilities and that type of thing that need to be attended to as well. So we could certainly report back.
Can we leave that with you, Ms. Ellis, to follow back up with? Just under the heritage kind of component, are you comfortable
Yes, I
with
can do that. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
So Chair, just if
Yes.
I can jump back in there, I believe there was the ICIP grant that did come through, did they not? It was like almost $500,000 that we got for the old school. So I think, any of the work that's going to be done at the old school should come through us, not just facade work, just to keep us abreast.
Yeah, I just think let's get an understanding from Ms. Hurley. Generally, when you apply for funding, you generally itemize, what your potential projects are. So I don't, anyways, yes, let's just follow up for sure.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other feedback, if I can see any hands in terms of the work plan? Thanks again, Peter, for adding things. I see Karen's hand up. Ms. Ellis?
Yes. Thank you, Chairman Ross. I just wanted to let you know that we have had issues, obviously, because of COVID with working on our designation bylaws. I have made a connection with a young lady who enjoys research, and she is willing to research a property for us in her own space, on her own time. So I thought we could try that as an option because it's free and she enjoys it a lot, and we'll see how that goes, because that might be an option for us to be able to still get the work done without having actually somebody sit in the office and be restricted by COVID. So if you're okay with that, I can confirm that connection and give her a property to research. And the next part of that, if you're okay with that research, is there a certain property that you would like her to start with and see how she makes out? She's offering this for free, by the way, just.
Okay. Do we need a motion on that since it's not going to cost any money? Can we just have consensus that this is a good thing to do, and then someone could perhaps suggest a property? Let me
I
scroll.
don't believe we need a motion. I think all the information's public. It's not that we're relieving, releasing confidential information. It's all information that she would just be going through in a public forum. If she needed a letter of authorization through this committee to have access, through land registry or something like that, maybe we could go from there. But I think if anybody wants to do research and, provide it to staff and we can bring it forward with that in mind, I don't think there's a problem with that. If there is a group or if there's a selection that the team wants, to have her look at, and you feel more comfortable with a motion, we can do that. And that motion would just be that staff report back on any of the findings, that are being conducted for XYZ property.
Does anyone right now have any suggestions for a particular property? Or maybe, people that have ideas could approach Karen and suggest them. I'm looking for hands. I see a hand. Ashley Stewart, I see your hand. Go ahead. Is that correct? Yep. Can other people hear Ashley?
No.
No. Ashley, we can't hear you. Sorry. Can she hear us? I don't know whether she can.
Through you, Chairman Ross, perhaps Ashley unplug your headphones and just try to talk to the laptop and see if that works. Sometimes it.
Yes, okay. She's still talking, but we can't hear her. Oops. Oh, now she's moving, so, okay. I don't know whether to sort of move on and leave this technical issue to resolve itself if possible. Oh, here she comes again. Let's try. Ashley, we still can't hear you. No, she doesn't know why. So I throw myself on the mercy of the clerk.
Through you, Chairman Ross, I've sent the request to ask the mic. I don't really have any other tricks, respectfully, to trigger the communication there.
Okay.
Perhaps, Ashley, if you want to log off and then rejoin, that we could do that, and I can just quickly make a notation. All right. Okay. So for now, Chairman Ross, I would just move along, and we can talk about the other properties.
Yeah, and we have a lot on the agenda, so I think we should move on. Okay, so let us move on then to item 9.2, if everyone's okay with that, the Millbrook mural, and who is going to speak to that initially? Ms. Alice and Mr. Ramsey, were you, is that correct? Am I assuming correctly? I see a smile, 2 smiles, at least 2. Well, so who would like to go first?
Well, everybody knows my opinion, and I'm waiting. Karen, do you know more than I know about what the next step is?
Well, Peter, I think based on our last meeting when we talked, and to the rest of the committee, sorry, when we talked about the location of the mural, and we talked about making a connection with the Stevensons, who own the building upon which the mural is located. And I believe that Ms. Lysett has done that and has provided information to say that the Stevensons are happy to continue to host the mural, and they are open to considering having panels attached to the building. So that remains an option in terms of how we move forward with the mural. I think at the last meeting we talked about, the mural needs to be fixed and where we go from there. And then we got into a whole discussion about location and what type of medium it would be, et cetera. So I think, so everyone knows, Peter and I have spoke about returning the rest of the mural money to the township, and then moving on to recreate that mural in a good spot, in a medium that will be less maintenance intensive. So that is,
I think everything you're saying is correct. But I think what I'm waiting for is for someone to step up and say they're going to take this project on. And that's what I've been waiting for. Because I think I've made it very clear that I've been looking after this thing for 12 years and I'm getting tired of it. And it would be nice if somebody else would get involved in it and solve some of the problems. Now, I've done the research with two different companies, excuse me, two different companies of two different applications and the costs involved and how it would be done and why and where. And that's long enough ago that those quotes I had will probably be invalid now. They'll have to be done over again. But somebody has to take this thing and run with it and continue tracking down with the committee where the committee wants this thing to go and how they want to apply it. So I'm sitting waiting for somebody. I have a package all put together with the account of this mural from day one to the present, and all the bank records, all the correspondence, the legal work that was done through the lawyers. The package is complete. I just need someone to hand it to. And when they get it organized, then we can set up an account with the municipality and take the balance of the money and transfer it. And presumably the committee will decide how they want to handle the mural and the application of it and where they want to put it and carry on with it.
If I could just step in as chair here, my recollection, and correct me if I'm wrong, clerk, is that this committee did agree to take on this project, but we really had to wait until council voted to give us the money, which was what, the end of February, something like that, when finally the budget was approved. And so we've known now for a couple of months that we have the money to proceed with this project, but we haven't had any meetings. So I think, Peter, you've summed it up very well. We're at the point now where we have to make some decisions. We have the money from council, which frankly, I didn't think we would get, but we did, thank you, council. And we can move ahead. If we didn't have the money, we couldn't move ahead, and who knows what would have happened. But we have the money now. And you're right, Peter, you've done a lot on this, and we need to make a decision and deal with it one way or the other. So that's how I'm reading it right now. More other comments?
No, you're right, Mr. Chair. Thank you. Thank you.
So the question is, what do we do? There were various possibilities talked about in terms of where, I can't remember them all, but I remember we had a wide ranging discussion, and then Kathy Lysette spoke to the owner of the building, and we were still waiting to hear his input. And now we've got that. So I think all the ducks are in a row, if that's the right expression. So where do we go? So
I think we're just waiting for somebody on this committee to jump up and say, hey, I'm ready to go with this thing and do it. But
well,
nobody's jumping up.
It belongs to the whole committee. One person could take a leadership role, you're quite right. But we as a committee have to decide what we want to do. No one individual can make that decision. We have to vote on it. But we got this money and we got to use it. So
no, I think, Rob, the reason I say that is because I have been the one person involved carrying the thing. And so I've made a lot of decisions. And I guess I expect somebody to step in and take my place and come up with a lot of answers and make some decisions, go to council, go to the committee for approval, but get the thing organized and do it. And in actual fact, what they're doing is taking my place. It's as simple as that. But I can't get anybody in that group to jump up and say,
Well, that's because we all know,
Okay,
Peter, that we all know that nobody can take your place. That would be impossible.
oh,
Madam Clerk, had your hand up.
what a
Through you, Chairman Ross. I think everybody summarized this very well. I think we aren't at a spot where we're passing the torch. I think the torch is ready to go. I think we all need to decide as a committee where we want to put it. I think, do we want to leave it affixed to the side of the building on a new panel? Do we want to find a new location? I don't believe we're in a situation. I think you've done all the hard work and legwork, Peter. I think you've been the champion of this project and the project's at the finish line. So I think this team as a committee needs to make a suggestion and a recommendation to take forward to council on what we're going to do and how we're going to spend this $7,000 and what we're going to do with the mural. So all of your hard work and everything, I completely agree and cannot thank you enough for that. But I do agree with Chairman Ross that we're at a situation that it's not one person. I think this committee as a whole needs to determine what that recommendation is, because council's allotted you the $7,000, or what our next step is. Are we doing more investigation? Are we going to lock in at one place, have it repainted? Like, I think that's the spot that we're at.
Other, yes, Councillor Huntley.
Through you, Chair. I think, to kind of the points that have been raised, I think what we need to do is put all the options down on a piece of paper. Like we need a report, and somebody's got to bring it back to us with what are the, where are the location options? What are the material options? And we can start to make, I don't think it's one decision, I think is what it's come down to. There are multiple steps of decisions along the way on this one. And we need to see what each of those decisions leads to. So I think that where Peter's going is, somebody needs to put that together for all of us to stare at, because I don't think, just talking around in circles, we have enough information to make, or the ability to make a decision today on what exactly the future of that mural is without having that information in front of us. So I don't know, Peter, if you have that information, maybe one of us can work with you to kind of put that into a digestible decision tree type report that we can stare at.
well, I have all the information and it can be put together rather quickly. And I suppose really this is a difficult way, this process of discussing this and making a decision on it. What we need is a meeting person to person to really solve the problems and discuss it out. I think it makes more sense. You can't discuss it into detail and go through different quotes and explain the reasons why and all of that.
I see Mr. Leopard's hand up.
Yes, I'm willing to take a chance on figuring out what to do then, since I live close enough to Peter. For a variety of reasons, I've been getting a lot of thought, but I will take it on, that position.
All right, Madam Clerk.
What if we formed, just listening to the team, what if we formed a subcommittee? We would have a staff representative. I don't mind. I'm sure I'd probably be allowed to do it. And we could talk about the options and kind of piggyback on what Councillor Huntley was saying and present those options. Maybe, maybe this subcommittee is given the authorization to narrow it down to, 5 options, 6 options, 3 options, whatever that number is, or however many you believe we might have, Peter. Then the subcommittee can bring forward those options, kind of as Councillor Huntley was saying, with those details in it, like you were saying, Peter, the quotes, the dollar values, whatever it is. Then we would present that at the June meeting, and then maybe the committee could vote or select the preferred option, and then maybe that would start the ball rolling. I don't know, Ms. Dallas, is anything popping into your head?
Yeah,
I think that sounds
ahead,
like a good. Sorry.
Who's talking? I can't see. And Oh, sorry, Karen, sorry, you're over there, right? Okay. Ms. Alice, sorry.
Through you, Chairman Ross, to respond to Ms. Page. I think that's a good idea, just to frame it out and then make a decision. It's very nice of you to offer up your staff expertise. I appreciate that.
And I just want to stress, so the message, I hope the message does get through to Mr. Ramsey, that you're off the hook. Like, I mean, we're approaching the finish line with this for you. It's being handed over to the municipality, to this group. A decision has to be made. We have money that we have to spend. We don't want to lose it. And we have to deal with this. And then you can rest easy. Like, it's, you know, you fought the good fight, run the good race, blah, blah, blah. And something will be done. And I think if we can make a decision by next meeting with the options laid out in front of us, because we had a wide-ranging discussion in the previous meetings. It's a long time ago. I mean, it's November. So, but we didn't have the money then. So but now we do. So we'll move on with it. And I appreciate very much that you want this resolved. And so I think the suggestion that's been made is a good one. And I'll mute myself.
Mr. Chairman, are you here?
Yes, I can hear you. Mr. Franco, did you wish to add to this discussion?
Yeah, I'd be very happy to work with Bruce. I think he's the perfect choice because has a lot of experience in the visual arts, which I don't, but I'm more than happy to work with him. But I do remember that I thought we had already decided that we would not be leaving the mural in its current location.
If my memory serves me correctly, that was what we had thought, that it was probably not a good thing because of the degeneration of the brick, et cetera, et cetera. But since Ms. Lysette has had a discussion with the owner of the building, I thought there was a slightly different hue to that idea. But I think we have to be clear what we do and do not want, and present that to this committee and make a decision. So
okay. My offer stands. I'd be more than happy to work with Bruce.
Okay, I see Mr. Lepper's hand up. Yes?
Chairman, I think that what you said is correct, but I think in light of what Kathy found, it seems as if the owners want the mural there. And so I think that's what I would assume we would work to, rather than trying to find a new location, work to that location, but finding a new way to adhere it to the wall. And that's what I'm assuming the project would be about.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I think that's the sort of thing that we need to see in a final report, hopefully a final report to this committee, and reviewing, I think Kathy Lysette did a fairly extensive interview with the owner of the building and got his feedback. So that's in writing. And so that could be reviewed as well. So, but without it in front of us right now, it's very hard to talk about these things. At least I find it hard. Yep. So yes, Madam Clark.
For you, Chairman Ross. So are we getting the general consensus from the committee that we want to just focus on keeping it on that building, just how we preserve it and maintain it on that building? Is that the general consensus? We're not looking for an alternative location?
That's my feeling on it.
That's not how I interpreted this action. I thought that the subcommittee would include that and make a proposal at our next meeting, and then we would make that decision. But if we can take a straw poll now, if that's I can't remember what Kathy Lysette's discussion with the owner of the building was and the details, but we could save the discussion till next time or go on. Councillor Huntley, I see your hand up.
Yeah, through you, Chair. So the owner of the building, Andy Stevenson, was very receptive to leaving it there, and I think he was actually even offering a little bit of funds, going forward. So, I mean, the subcommittee can take away the pros and cons of moving it, and maybe we change it. But I do think that for the sake of expedience and the fact that he's a willing host, I mean, it does make more sense to keep it where it is for now.
Is there consensus right now on that, or am I opening a can of worms? Maybe we should leave that discussion to the committee, and then when they come back to us at our next meeting, we can approve it or not.
It's interesting to hear Brian say that, though, because if the owner is enthusiastic, that makes a big difference to my way of thinking.
Me too, Mr. Franco. Like I was kind of on the let's move it bandwagon as well, until it turned out that the guy really does want it on his building. So.
Okay, well that makes it a little easier. Hopefully.
Yeah, yes, hopefully, but keep reassuring Peter, your days are numbered. You're not stuck with this, you know.
I like the way you guys are arguing about this. This is great. I'm just sitting here listening.
Yeah. So
I think we lost our clerk.
yeah, the clerk, I just received a very frightening message saying that I am now the host of the meeting. So let's break out. Oh yeah, this is a public meeting. I can't say anything. Okay, maybe she'll come back. But anyway, I think we have to carry on then if people are willing to. I think we have a plan, and we need a vote on this. There's consensus. Yes, Councillor Huntley.
Just a heads up, Rob, like you might have to watch for her trying to get back in. If you become the host, you might have to be.
Okay, I will try.
You may have to be expunged.
Okay, well, we'll do our best. That's all we can do.
Okay.
Moving on then to item 9.3, the feasibility study of the old arena in Millbrook. Now, this is where I was hoping the clerk would be here, but maybe Ms. Alice, her picture has disappeared. We need staff input to discuss this item, I think. Karen, are you there? Yes, you are. Hand up.
Sorry, Chairman Ross, I was just on the phone with the clerk.
Yeah.
And she's got a message that Zoom has failed. So she is trying to get back in.
Okay.
We really do need a clerk, but we can carry on for the moment. I'm going to try and take detailed notes, and she's going to try and rejoin us. So we are in a bit of a predicament because we really can't have the meeting without a clerk.
No, we can't.
So let's carry on for the short term and see if she can.
Oh, here I see her picture. Her name has reappeared.
There she is.
There she is.
Okay.
Hey,
Good.
welcome back.
Okay.
Okay.
So if I can just quickly interject here procedurally, this is a faux pas, and I apologize. So if this happens again and everything goes down, we just made an amendment to the procedural bylaw. We will try to reconnect. If we cannot connect after 15 minutes, the meeting will be adjourned. Any decisions that are made by the committee will stand, and everything else will be adjourned until the next meeting at the call of the chair. When the chair calls the meeting, we will give formal notice to make sure we can reconvene. My heart is racing out of my chest, and I do apologize for that. Let's continue with our meeting.
Well, you and me both, when I saw I was the host, but okay, well, we're at item 9.3, the feasibility study, the old arena of Millbrook. And
so can I just quickly interject,
yeah,
and this is horrible. Did we decide on a subcommittee?
Yes, we did. So I believe it was David Franco, Peter Ramsey, Bruce Lepper. If I missed anybody out? Oh, and then you, Madam Clerk, were going to be part of that as well as the staff?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Yes, I can help administratively. I just turned the video off just to help. I'm not sure exactly what's going on here. I think if we can have Miss Ellis on standby, because you've kind of been a part of it as well, Miss Ellis, that would help. So is the plan for us to meet and come back with options that are specific to that location or alternative locations?
My understanding was that the downtown location was now favored. There seemed to be consensus keeping it where it is, but that the committee would be open to any recommendations that the subcommittee makes. Is that correct? No, just nod your head.
Make it work.
Okay, we want to get it done.
Make it work.
Make it
Great,
work. Yeah.
thank you. Thank
Okay.
you for clarification. I apologize for that.
I agree with your version, Mr. Chairman.
Good, thank you. Okay, can we go on to item 9.3 then? And I think we need staff input from this because I, for one, don't really know much about this except what I've read various places and heard via the grapevine. So, Ms. Alice, can you fill us in on what's happening, or Councillor Huntley, perhaps? Who can tell us what's happening?
Chairman Ross, I'm sorry, but I must admit I don't really know a lot of details.
Okay.
I have a fairly full agenda of my own, so I haven't really paid attention to what others are doing, unfortunately.
Perhaps Councillor Huntley can fill us in on this.
Yeah, for sure. I'll do my best on this one. So What has happened is, again, with the ICIP grants that I mentioned earlier with the old school, the township did also get a fairly sizable chunk of money to put towards the old Millbrook Arena. But the problem is we also declared that we would have a feasibility study done on that arena to figure out what the future of it is. So there's kind of a cart before the horse, and the fact that we actually just got a whole bunch of money that we can put towards that arena, but we don't actually have a decision yet on what it is we want that arena to do. And I know a lot of options have been tabled, everything from field house and lacrosse and soccer in it to tearing it down and growing grass. So I mean, there's quite a wide variety, and there's a pot of money sitting there waiting for a decision to be made. So I think at a staff and a township level, there will be a series of public meetings that'll be on the agenda soon in order to get public input onto what we think as public should occur with that arena in the future. So I think that's about all we can really comment on it at this point in time.
Okay, I see Mr. Lepper's hand up.
Yes, I noticed there was I'm not sure I got it in an email, but a comment from George Robb regarding that. And he drew to the fact that the official plan or the design that was approved for the revitalization of the downtown and that whole central area included a green space in that area. I think it's more than just growing grass, disregarding, I don't mean to insult your comment there, Mr. Huntley, but I think the idea originally was it was to be a meeting place, a common place in the community, with the old mill standing as a sort of head feature point to it. And that was put aside, I would say, I think initially, temporarily, it seemed to me to be a facility for the soccer club. I think, it's valid to have the soccer club have a place to meet during the winter months and so forth. But on the other hand, I think there's a lot of work needs doing on this, because I think there were a lot of people looking forward to having that common, that for lack of a better word, a town square available to us. And now it's just sort of been kicked to one side, it seems. So that my feeling is I'm in favor of that common area, that grass field, but by the same token, I don't make those decisions. I'm just stating an opinion.
Yes, Councillor Huntley.
So everything that Mr. Lepper said is absolutely correct. And the whole point of the feasibility study is to find out whether that is the correct path to take or renovating the building is. So, it's going to be a public process one way or the other. So your opinion is very valid, and your opinion is, commonly shared. So the more people who share that opinion at a public forum, the stronger that opinion gets.
And if I might just interject, I think what I've heard from some people is that a lot of time went into the proposal for that area through this committee and was approved by council. I know it's not binding on council, but that historical work on the downtown landscape and hardscape be respected, at least the spirit of it. But I think, as you say, that's something that will be raised in the public process. Correct?
Correct. And to add to your point, if this committee feels strongly to what Mr. Lepper has been talking about, then maybe it's worth sending in a letter on behalf of the committee that is what we would like to do.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think that's a great suggestion, and I'd like to go on record as saying that I absolutely support Bruce's recommendation. I think many people have been looking forward to a green space in that area. And I'd also like to know, what would it cost to make that building safe? Because I remember when the new community center was in discussion, there was a lot of talk about the current arena being actually unsafe.
So do we know when the public consultation process will be beginning? Perhaps, Cindy, you can tell us?
I don't know if we know that yet, Councillor Huntley, do we? I believe they're going to issue an RFP first, and then it will go from there. I do agree with what Councillor Huntley is saying, though. So if the committee does support that, perhaps a couple members, perhaps David and Bruce could draft some form of letter, and maybe we can submit something on behalf of the committee if that is the committee's intent.
Okay.
There will be a public process. We will have an opportunity to comment, but I do agree with what Councillor Huntley's saying.
So by our next meeting in June, perhaps we'll know more about how the public process is going to unfold, and at that time we can talk about our response as a committee to that process. Does that seem like a reasonable thing to do? Just nod your heads if you agree. No. You don't. Okay.
Well, sorry,
I'm feeling dizzy.
If I can make a recommendation, Chair.
Yes.
Maybe we have a draft letter or something for the next meeting on the next agenda, so that we can move it a little bit even closer to a goalpost. I mean, if that's how we can decide with a letter.
It's always good to have something concrete. Sure. So
absolutely.
Who would like to put that letter together? There was, I think.
Bruce, can we get together, Bruce? And we could.
I will try drafting one, and then with David's help there, then maybe we can make something that is workable with the committee. Yeah.
Okay, so we have consensus on that. We don't have to have a vote or anything. So
I think let's have a motion. I think Councillor Huntley tabled it. If we could get a seconder.
Would you like a motion? Okay, so Councillor Huntley has moved that we have a letter produced with this committee's response to the, Madam Clerk, you can phrase it, the redevelopment.
A draft letter be prepared to bring back to the next meeting for the committee to review and provide during, we can draft something, but to provide during the public consultation, or to provide to the township for consideration or something like that. We can work on it. But I think the intent is that a draft letter come back to the next meeting for the committee to review.
Okay, so moved by David Franco, seconded by Bruce Lepper. Is that correct?
Yeah,
sure. That'll work. Yeah.
Okay. All in favor, raise your hands. Anyone opposed? Yeah, one person is opposed. So Ashley Stewart is opposed. So we have, it carries, but with one person opposing. Am I correct? Yes. Her hands up. Maybe I've misinterpreted that.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
But two hands up for yes, one hand for no.
And we still can't hear her.
Can't hear me?
yes, we
No,
can.
we can now. Yes, sorry, Ashley. Wait a second.
Now.
Procedurally, this is a mess because of me. So did you vote in favor of the motion?
Well, I've been trying to connect with my sound. So my apologies. And I know we just voted. I think maybe things are working. So Chairman, if you don't mind me just jumping in, my suggestion was going to be, I fully support the idea of a recommendation letter, but perhaps we're putting the cart before the horse. My idea is that the public consultation would be so important, and you never know what type of ideas might come out of that, that maybe we should wait until we see what the options are. And then once we see what they are, we could select one, whether that is a green space, maybe it's something else we haven't even considered, and then we as a committee submit our recommendation.
This is procedurally difficult because we had a motion and we voted on it, and
yes.
It carried.
Yes.
And I think part of the reason it carried is that a lot of work has gone in over the years, the last 8 to 10 years, on a vision of that area, and this committee, previous incarnations of this committee, have been a part of that, notwithstanding what you're saying, which is a good point. I mean, other ideas may come up. But Madam Cindy.
Madam Cindy.
Better not say that.
No, it's okay. Through you, Chairman Ross.
Madam Clerk, what do I do?
Yeah, no, 100%. I do absolutely hear what you're saying, Ashley. I think we can leave the motion as it is. The letter's coming back in draft, and maybe the letter's lighter. Maybe the lighter is that just our intent is that we want consultation. We want to be at the table. We have a prime interest, and something like that. So that I do agree. We don't need to specify exactly what it is we think, because she's right. There could be other options presented at that public meeting. So I think regardless, your concept, and I think when we get that draft letter, we can speak to it.
Perfect. Okay.
Okay, so the motion did pass, and with
yes.
Okay, and that's been recorded. All right. Phew. All right, let's move on. Item 9.4, the Dale Monument and work plan. Mr. Ramsey, are you speaking to that, or is staff speaking to that, or?
I'm going to speak to part of it.
Okay, you go ahead then, Mr.
I'm losing you, Rob. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I can hear you. I've just muted myself, so you go ahead.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So Cindy, a couple of headings might help this. I want to talk about the Parkett pamphlet. A year ago, we talked about producing a pamphlet that could be handed out to people, visitors, as they toured around the monuments with some history about the grave markers that were there. Anyway, we didn't do anything about it. And although somebody did come up with an idea about producing a pamphlet and putting it in a little plastic box that people would come along and take one out of, the more I thought of it, I thought, yeah, I'm going to have about 500 pieces of paper that the kids are going to take out of the box and throw all over the place. So I really don't think that's a good idea, but that doesn't mean we can't discuss it further. But another idea I have is to make up small plaques about maybe 4 by 6 inches with a little bit of history about the people who are whose markers are there, and put it on a wire clip or post of some kind. I have to think about this. You people can think about it too. And put it in front of the markers. And as people walked around, they could look at the markers and then they could read a little bit of history about the people. Anyway, open for discussion, but I don't think that the idea of printing something and putting it on paper and assuming, excuse me, assuming the kids are not going to pull them out and throw them all over the place.
Thanks, Peter. So that's one aspect of the Dale Monument and work plan. Is there other, in which we should not lose track of course, but are there other things that need to be addressed as well?
Yes.
Okay, so is staff, have things been done, or have they not been done? Left undone, those things which we ought to have done. What else do we need to sort of think about in this conversation?
With regards to the parquet in general?
Well, I'm just wondering what this item, Dale Monument and Work Plan, I should know, but what that encompasses. So there's the information pamphlet, which you just discussed,
Yeah,
but there are other things too, aren't there?
Yeah, because this is a little misleading. The minutes I think it says Dial Monument, Dial Monument and Workplace. So I just took it on my own what we were going to discuss. I didn't think it was very clear. So there's things that I do want to talk about with regards to the parquet.
Through you, Chairman Ross. The part of the intent to have this on here was to talk about the planting, the boxes, and the work plan, and how we were going to kind of go about implementing that as a team with the COVID restrictions. The other component is there's been infrastructure breaks. I'm not sure if that's exactly the right word on some of the monuments. And so we have sent that information over to Campbell Monuments, and they are looking at what the options are and potentially repouring. They're waiting for, drier land, et cetera, and, and the weather to cooperate. So that was kind of what my thought was on this item, was to talk about how we move forward with these items that keep rolling, like our work plan and the planter boxes and the planting and all of that type of stuff as well, just to let you know that we are aware that there's a crack in them and we're on it.
Okay, thanks. That's very helpful. So in terms of, there's a number of issues here. So in terms of the information pamphlet, Peter has pointed out that perhaps that's not the most felicitous way of conveying this information because of the possibility of vandalism. do we have a budget for some kind of other way of dealing with this? I mean, one thing would be, I suppose, a plaque, much like the one that's at the Millbrook Trails, you know, commemorating the people that were the initial developers of it, or something like that. Something like that.
There's money there, Rob. There's money for planting. There's money for the garden planters. There's and the amount of money I'm talking about is very little. I mean, it could be just taken from any other project and never been missed. So I don't think money's not an issue in this. This is a small project.
Okay, so in terms of that, the first thing you mentioned, the information, the historical information and whatnot, you would like some feedback from the committee in terms of what might be an alternative to the flyers, the paper flyers, which I suppose in COVID-19, we're not supposed to be touching paper anyway, you know, I guess. So what were you, Peter, sort of imagining would be a good alternative to that? You may have said, but I may have missed it. Like
well, just a small plaque to put in front of the headstones. And it's just an idea. I'd have to think about it seriously as to what was involved and money, and come back to the committee with something in June. But it's just an idea, and unless somebody else can come up with some other ideas, other than this business of printing material and leaving loose pieces of pamphlets over there, which I don't think is a good idea. Anyway, I think we can talk more about it later on.
Okay.
And I'll look into what I've been talking about and get some idea of costs and how to do it.
Thanks, Peter. Ms. Alice, I think your hand was up.
Yes,
correct?
thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Chairman Ross. Two things. I would suggest to the committee that the money has been allocated in the budget to do the landscaping and the planter boxes. So I think we should really work on achieving that goal first and spending the funds as per the allocation. Once we get that completed, or we know how much money we're going to need to complete that work, then we can certainly look at Peter's suggestion of the information signs. I know we have done work previously on finding information on the people who are named on the plaques at the monuments. So we do have some information, but I think previously we did talk about a bigger sign too about the history of the DL Parkette. So I think we need to focus, and I think Peter's idea is good in terms of information and having it there on a sign or a plaque or whatever you want to say. But I think the priority at this point, given what we've asked for in terms of budget from council, and they've graciously given it to us, that we need to finish the landscaping component this year. We've had the trees planted, the pyramids are done, they're going to be fixed. Let's do the landscaping and then move on to that next project, because we will have to spend some time confirming the information before we actually commit it to a sign or a plaque.
Well, thanks, Ms. Alice. Where are then? That doesn't preclude Peter bringing something to the next meeting for us to consider, even if we can't pay for it in the short term. Is that correct?
I believe so.
Peter, yeah, Peter, you're still feel free to make suggestions in terms of signage. Okay,
yeah.
That's even. But Ms. Alice is saying that in terms of priorities, in terms of what we've been granted in terms of budget money, we have to deal with the planting. Okay, so that's the next item, is the planting.
Yeah.
We can't. We can go over now. I need some clarification from staff. I've heard that. Well, we know that the COVID regulations are that a group cannot go. A group of volunteers can't go. And after June 2nd or whenever, we'll find out how the rules change in terms of that sort of thing. That's where it stands right now. Is staff doing anything to the that area at all, or is it seen as a volunteer thing that we would take on? I really can't recall. Can somebody clarify that for me?
Through you, Chairman Ross, are you just talking about like grounds maintenance, cutting the grass, etc.? Or are you talking about doing planting and implementations of like the boxes and stuff like that?
Thanks. That's a good, useful distinction. I was thinking of the boxes and whatnot. I'm assuming that the township staff cuts the lawn.
Yes, yes. So
Yes.
that's all maintained.
Yeah.
So I would say, similar to what Millbrook Valley Trails is doing, they're sticking to family bubbles. So if we decide we want to have planting days and we want to plant certain things before the lift restrictions, hopefully, I think we would have to do it in our units. So, you know, like Peter and Ann could go and paint or plant or do something like that. I do know with Millbrook Valley Trails, if there's specific items that we really do need to get in and we're time sensitive, we can talk with staff to have township staff assist us. So both are options, I would say. But we cannot go as a group. We have to be in our individual bubbles.
Okay. Other input on that before I go back to Peter, because I suspect he has something to say on this. Okay, so back to you, Mr. Ramsey. So
Thank you.
You're clear on the COVID-19 regulations, but are there issues that need immediate or very soon action? You know, we're coming up to the long weekend and the planting time. In your view,
You
have to buy the stuff.
Yeah. There's a lot of things that have to be done. First of all, I want to talk about the plastic garden supports. Now, at a meeting, this subject came up, and I believe it came up because of what the BIA was doing with plastic planters downtown. And somebody thought we should have plastic garden supports over at the Dial Parkette, which I disagree with 100%. But I was asked to get quotes, and I did. So I went to the manufacturer and I got quotes on purchasing material to replace all of the wooden planters with plastic, and the new planting boxes would also be plastic. They came up with a price approximately, and I've forgotten exactly what it was, of around $2,000. And that may be what was allotted for it also. It didn't include installation, and it didn't include taxes. Anyway, having submitted those costs, nothing else has happened about it, which to me is a good thing from the standpoint that I don't agree with them. We have put the wooden boxes around the Dial Monument, and we've put wooden boxes around the bench, and that's what we were going to continue to do for the box coming into the entrance of the parkette, and one other place where there's an area proposed for another monument at some time. Anyway, I don't know whether this company that quoted is in business any longer, or I know at one point they could not get material, so you couldn't order the boxes anyway. So I think we need another discussion, talk about the difference between the plastic garden supports as opposed to the wood. Just to give you an idea, to do the same thing in wood, I would say would be well under $300. And the plastic is going to be around $2,000. And I don't think that plastic is the right place to put in that historical parkette place.
Thanks, Peter. I should know, but I can't recall where the plastic container idea came from. Did it come from this committee? I don't.
It just popped up at a meeting because it's already been decided that the BIA was going to put plastic containers downtown. And somebody thought, let's do plastic at the parkette. And anyway, and so I said, I'll go and get a quote, which is what I did.
But we're not in any way committed to using plastic.
No.
Okay.
And
all
it's
right.
never,
So, Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yeah. Yes.
I know we obviously plastic is a bad word for Mr. Ramsey, but the concept was that the BIA was investing in a style of planter, be it that they're plastic, for the downtown. And the thought was that this committee could continue that style going up into the Dial Monument. And it was just an investigate and find out whether it made sense and whether it would, aesthetically work. If Mr. Ramsey's research has determined that it's far too costly and not stylish enough, then then his research is quite conclusive. Then we don't need to go with the plastic containers that match the ones downtown.
Thanks for that clarification, Councillor Huntley. So the feeling based on this new information, again, I don't think we want to have a vote on this, but it sounds, is that necessary? It sounds like plastic is not the way to go, and we'll stay with wood. Although I guess wood isn't that cheap right now either, is it? But anyway, it's. Is there did anybody want to sort of give some feedback to the discussion here? I'm feeling like I am in a bubble, a COVID bubble. So it sounds like plastic isn't the way to go. Peter doesn't like it, so and I tend to agree. I'm not keen on plastic myself, but other people might have opinions as well.
I think wood is much more aesthetically pleasing. And you're right, Mr. Chairman, the price of wood has gone through the roof. So we need some new quotes.
So how do we move forward with this? Because what really needs to be done soon? There are things that need to be done, correct? Am I not correct?
Yes.
So Mr. Chair, if I can suggest it, I think, we know what the budget we have is. I believe it was $1,200 if I'm not mistaken. I mean, I think you need to price out what plants you want to put up there in the existing planters, and then figure out, with whatever's left, can we do all the planters you want to do this year, Mr. Ramsey, or is there one planter that we can knock off and put plants in? Like, I think you got to work within the $1,200 allotted to what it is we're going to accomplish.
Sorry, Ryan. I was going to say I can stay within the budget easy. That's not a problem.
Then the second part of it is, who do you need help from, and what do you need to get it done?
Well, what I would do is give to the township dimensions for the wood required, and they would purchase it, probably deliver it back to my house. I would pre-cut everything, take it over, and we would assemble it. And the next step then is to fill them full of loam and start planting.
Who buys the trees? Who delivers the trees? How do you get the trees?
Okay, so so once the boxes are built, then it's a matter of getting the loam, and then we'll get the trees.
So sorry to interrupt you, Peter. Then Cindy, is this something we need to coordinate with the parks, like with Chris from Parks?
I was just going to say, through you, Chairman Rust, Councillor Huntley, I think it is important that whatever our request is, the direction is that staff consult with township staff and report back. I believe historically the staff have assisted us with works at the Dial Parkette. I just don't want to speak on behalf of anybody. I think you're right, Councillor Huntley. Let's just double check all of that information. There's no reason though, because just interrupting to correct, we have $2,500 for the planter boxes based on the Taylor quote, and we have $1,400 for landscaping. So if we don't have the services of the township, perhaps part of our investigation is to have somebody install it as well.
Okay. And I might just add that if we have to work in bubbles, I mean, we all know each other. I know some people who would be able to go over as volunteers and do what Peter thinks needs to be done. Probably not as well as he could do it, but if help is needed, that's available, I think. So we need to coordinate. But I'm still kind of fuzzy about where this is going and who's taking charge of the next step. Can somebody help me with that? What do we need to do, like, this week?
Well,
any.
if we're gonna stay with the wood, then what I have to do is figure out the exact dimensions of the wood that is required, which I would then give to Cindy, and she would pass it on to Parks, and they would purchase the wood. And we will. There's not much to assemble them. I would assemble them to get them over there. David and Bruce, I'll let them know that what I'm doing, and they can give me a hand. We get the stuff over there, get them assembled in place, and the next job is for the township to go to the gardening place and get us a load of loam to fill the planters, and we're underway.
So if I just may respond to that, Peter, so you're happy with that as a way forward? That
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's the fastest way to get the thing going.
Okay. All right. Well,
So I think through you, Chairman Ross, just
Yeah.
to quickly interrupt. So I think let's start with that. Why doesn't Peter give me the information? I can talk internally with staff. I can report back if there's any reason why we can't get their support, and we can go from there. I do want to reiterate, though, respectfully, Peter, you cannot work with David and Bruce in the same bubble and work on this prior to June 2nd. So that's the biggest thing that the province has said. You have to stay in your own bubble, even when you're outside. So unfortunately, we can't allow that to happen. So please just make sure that, maybe township staff could go over and help with you there, or you tell township staff what you want and they can go there. But from what we understand, we have to stay within our own bubble until after June 2nd.
Well, that's all right.
Or people could go over sequentially. I mean,
in different times. Like say you go from 1 till 2, Peter goes from 2 till 3. What exactly? Yes, 100%. We just can't all congregate there.
Yeah.
On the other hand, June 2nd is not very far away. What, 2 weeks?
Yeah.
And I think most of the restrictions probably are going to be lifted.
And we can live with that June 2nd.
Yeah.
That's not going to make or break it.
Okay, that's good to know. Can we move on?
Yes.
Have we dealt with this? Okay.
I have another issue.
Oh, sorry. Okay, carry on.
No, I'm going to be talking for a while.
Carry on.
We need some brush cleaned up over at the Dial Parkette. On the side where the big brush is, beside the Dial Monument, there's some trees in there, not big trees, but branches that have come down. And the place just needs a little cleaning up from the standpoint of some broken branches picked up, some small limbs, and that maybe the boys could go over there and do a fast cleanup just to make the place look a little tidier. I would appreciate.
We can take that back to staff through you, Chairman Russ.
Thank you. Staff will be apprised of that information. It's good. A citizen's request.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Peter, anything else in terms of Dale?
Yes.
Okay, I thought so. Carry on.
I have an issue that I would like some clarification on. I thought that the Dial Parkette and the monuments was sort of under my umbrella, and I was looking after with the assistance of staff and whoever else. And when it was decided that we were going to consider cleaning the monuments, I did a little bit of research and I went to Swiss Management here in Peterborough and told them that I was looking for something to clean grave markers with. They had some chemicals and some ways of applying. I'd spent a little bit of time with them because they have been cleaning a lot of stonework. I talked with them, and then I went to cemetery management. Now, cemetery management, they maintain the cemetery down at Pontypool. And part of what they do is clean the stones. So I talked with a chap down there by the name of Derek Lyon, and he told me about the chemicals they used and how they do it and so forth. And of course, then I talked to Trevor Howard at Campbell Monuments, and he explained their process and their chemicals and how they did it. And my intentions then were to go to the committee, have a meeting, explain to them the different ways of cleaning markers with different chemicals and some of the costs involved. And I then really thought we would select who was going to take the project on, set a date, and I thought it would be interesting to have anybody who wanted to go and watch them clean the markers. Anyway, the next thing I found out was that really this was no longer my project, and somebody else had taken it all over and also made the arrangements to get the markers all cleaned and not clean the way I wanted them cleaned. I will make a point to say there's a right and a wrong way of doing it, and they were done the wrong way. That's another issue. Anyway, I suddenly realized that this was no longer my project, but nobody had said anything to me, and no one said, we really don't need your services anymore. We've decided somebody else is going to take this thing over and look after it. And I would really like some clarification of where I stand with this project and with the organization. I mean, you know, if I'm not needed any longer for any reason, somebody else wants to run with all this stuff, that's fine. But I just wish somebody would clarify it for me.
Through you, Chairman Ross, I can address this to you, Mr. Ramsey. At the last meeting that we had, the committee discussed the importance of preserving and maintaining the monuments, and they requested the funding in the 2020 budget. At that meeting, it was also discussed, because they already maintain Springville and Ebenezer, that we seek the quote from Campbell Monuments, which is exactly what I went forward with. So also internally as staff, it is our responsibility, and we do recognize that this is a volunteer committee, the amount of physical work that it takes to clean those monuments. We decided that it was not within our scope, nor is it with your scope, to actually physically use those products and clean the monument. So I think this has been talked around a lot. In no way, shape, or form, Peter, was it ever to take away from you. What should you feel like, you know, how you're feeling? The committee openly discussed this in November, and that was the direction that staff had, and that's what we came back with, because Campbell Monuments is already doing it.
Why haven't they cleaned the monuments?
They respectfully have not cleaned the monuments, through you, Chairman Ross, to Peter, due to the weather and due to the COVID restrictions. They are not allowed to do things in groups. So I have an email from Trevor. I can circulate it to the team. He has every intention on going back out there again. He's been out there twice already to have a look at them. And it is part of a cycle that they do clean them.
I understand what you're saying, and I think you're misunderstanding what I'm saying. I don't have a problem with Campbell Monuments doing it. I have a problem that's nobody decided, or somebody decided in a committee or in a meeting at some point, that this is exactly what they were going to do and who they were going to do it with. So there was no discussion about it. And I agree with Campbell doing it. I don't have a problem with that. It's just all of a sudden, this thing's getting done and nobody's talking about it.
Just to clarify, just because I'm a little confused, and what I just heard Cindy say is that we did discuss this in November. Is that correct? In our last meeting was way back in November.
Yes,
This was discussed,
Yeah,
and
item
a
9.1.
decision was made.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes, it was the minutes we just approved. Item
Yeah,
9.1.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there was no other meeting apart from that. It was just that one meeting.
And I apologize. I didn't understand you wanted us to come back. I was under the impression, because we already have them doing the other 2 cemeteries, that this would just be part of that as well. So I apologize if I've offended you, Peter, or if you feel staff has stepped out of their boundaries. To have another vendor come in to clean them, I don't think was even a consideration. We've already have them doing Springville and Ebenezer. So I apologize, and like I've said already, in no way, shape, or form did I mean to offend you or step on your toes and in the way of Dial Monument and maintenance of it. I was just under that assumption when we had that meeting.
So why haven't they done the monument?
Sorry.
Respectfully, Anne, it is because of the weather, and it's too wet for them to get in there, and they are not allowed to work in teams. They have been there twice to look at it. They've been there to look at the cracked foundation of the other pyramids. They were there taking pictures. They have been on site. But that's where they've left it thus far. Like I said, I can circulate the email that Trevor has given me with the plan, if that will help the committee.
Do you think that the committee is not interested in what they are doing or what they have done?
I think respectfully, from what I understood from them, it's the same as Springville and Ebenezer. As soon as we get those pictures, I send them to you when they've done the work, the before and after. So that is how I would assume we would be treating the Dial as well. Once the work was done, I'd send you guys the before and after.
Yeah, it would be interesting to see it as a committee member.
100%, just like the other ones, I'll do the exact same thing. But as you both noted, it has not been done yet. So once the work is done, I will make sure that picture is circulated.
Thanks. Okay. Anything else on Dale Monument? All right, then I think we should move on to item 9.5, Heritage Awards. Who's addressing that?
Miss Ellis.
Ms. Alice.
So we have money in the budget for Heritage Awards, and I think because of COVID, nothing happened last year, and then February is History Month, and nothing happened because we were deep in COVID again this year. So we do have money. We would like to keep going with the Heritage Awards. We have had an email, and correct me if I'm wrong, Cindy, but I don't recall if there was a name attached to the submission, but they have nominated a certain location for a Heritage Award. So I think the question is the committee still in favor of proceeding with the Heritage Awards? Do we open up the nominations and put it out there through social media and on the township website and proceed with the 2021 awards later this year, and then get back on schedule with releasing for 2022 later this year in hopes that we can again do it in February?
Okay, thanks, Ms. Ellis. So any discussion on that? Should we carry on? Yes, Councillor Huntley.
Through you, Chair, I don't see any reason why we would stop, having the awards where we can. I mean, if we have nominations come in, we can assess them and we can hand them out. I mean, we might not be able to do it at such a formal and, fantastic gala or event, but, I think keeping the momentum of the awards is an important thing to do, and especially, if we can post it online or wherever we can post it, but giving people that recognition. And I think over the last year, a lot of people put a lot of time into, doing restorations and cleaning stuff up. And so I think it's, as relevant today as it ever was. Maybe we don't get to hand deliver and, pop a cork or anything, but, at least we can still hand something out to people to recognize them.
I agree.
Thank you.
With Councillor Huntley said, I think that we can still make the awards, even if they're made online and without an official presentation.
Yeah, if I may, Chairman Ross, I think at one time we spoke about partnering with the Historical Society as well at their annual general meeting to do maybe a little bit of a bigger splash in terms of the awards presentation. Anybody who's involved with the Historical Society, do you know, I know it's a bit early, but do you think that in-person event will resurrect itself in 2022?
I don't know as yet, but it has certainly been closed down because of the pandemic, and I assume that Celia is considering whenever the restrictions are lifted that they will start up meeting again.
Yeah, it's difficult, isn't it? I mean, everything has been come to a halt. So, but in principle, it sounds like the consensus is that we carry on with the awards. However that works itself out, we don't really know, how it's going to be done, and the process for finding them, that seems to have worked well, and the most recent iteration of that worked well once all the bugs were kind of worked out. So, I mean, it seems like it would be silly to stop doing it because it's been a very good thing, and I think much appreciated. So do we need anything more definite than that right now? Is it possible to have anything more definite than that right now, except that in principle, we want to carry on with the Heritage Awards, given the constraints of living in a pandemic? Yes, Mr. Ramsey. Or sorry, wait.
Mother, are you talking on the phone?
Oh, okay. So Peter's hand was up.
No, I was going to say at one time, correct me, I think we ran a little advertisement in the paper, the local paper, requesting people to submit names. And maybe we should do that one more time. Did we get any? We must have got a couple of responses. Karen, do you recall?
I know we have one that we received by email. It was not on the form. I know we've had other nominations from other years that have not been presented yet, but I think it's something that I'm happy to speak with Bridget about pushing out on our social media, and we can certainly, there is money in the budget, like there is $500, I think it is, for the Heritage Awards, so we can certainly afford to run a little notice in the Millbrook Times.
Well, why don't we try it again and see if it gets a response?
Okay.
And would we be looking, what sort of time frame would we be looking at for the soon or later in terms of the ad in Millbrook Times? Like, are we thinking of the fall as a time to look for people, and then or in June?
Well, we'd probably miss a lot of people during the summer months.
Yeah.
As opposed to the fall.
I would think, sorry, I would think that maybe a notice in September, and then present in maybe November, and then release, get some maybe media coverage on here are the winners for 2021, and nominations are now open for 2, and then just kind of keep it rolling.
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, that's good. Well, and that's yeah. Anyway, that let's leave it there. That's a plan. Okay. Aren't Zoom meetings exhausting?
Through you, Chairman Ross, I think Councillor Huntley had his hand up.
Oh, thank you. Sorry, Councillor Huntley down in the corner there.
Well, I'm up at the top on mine. So.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, thank you, Chair. The only thing I was going to suggest is I think we should get a little bit of promotion out for it sooner rather than later, even if we aren't accepting applications till the fall, just to get, sight in mind, right? Like if people are thinking about it, then it just kind of, why not? Like, we have the ability to post it on our website, and maybe promote it a little here and there. Just waiting to the fall and then getting giving it a month before somebody can apply, just it's too small of a window. I think it has to be more front and center for people to know what's available and out there.
So an article in the Millbrook Times, maybe for not an ad, but an article that some poor soul could write.
And an article there, maybe something like get Bridget to post something on the website, like, you know, like a, hey, don't forget. And she put stuff out to Instagram and you know, Facebook on a regular basis. You know, like just get things thinking, even if it's not immediate.
Okay.
Yeah, I think waiting to the fall before we do anything is wasting a lot of good time, and you know, we could get something planted in people's minds now.
So who's going to take some leadership on this?
I'm hoping Cindy will pass a little message on to Bridget to maybe post a couple things.
For you, Chairman Ross, I think Miss Ellis said she was going to work with Bridget on doing the social media blast.
Okay. Thank
All
you
right.
for reminding me. You're quite right. She's shaking her head. No, she's not. Okay, that's great. So I think we've come to the end of the road for this meeting. So I need someone to move adjournment. A hand up, please. I see Councillor Belch's hand up. Madam Secretary, do we need a seconder? I can never remember. We do. Oh, Peter's hand just went up. So Peter Rams, you know, he's scratching his head. So
Actually, my hand is up.
Oh, sorry, Bruce Slepper is seconding
Okay.
adjournment. So all in favor, hands up. Thank you. So the meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, everybody. You've done a fantastic job. And our next meeting will be June 17th at 9 a.m.
Thank you very much.
Have a great rest of the